Okay, guys, are you ready to get clowny?
Yeah.
Are you ready to clown around? You ready to have some clown fun? Damien Leone, Thornton. Woo! You guys can be better than that. Let's go! That's more like it. Absolutely. How y'all doing?
Doing well.
Welcome.
Doing great.
Great to meet you guys.
Oh, great to meet you. It's great to be here.
We're so excited to have you.
So excited.
And we have to ask you something. Okay, so if there were any clown in the horror genre that you had to go up against, who would it be? Would it be Art, Pennywise, Twisty, Captain Spaulding?
Okay, so when I wrote Art the Clown, I knew at the time that Tim Curry was the king of clowns. So, and I tried to be as opposite from Tim Curry as possible because I didn't want to step on his toes or his big clown shoes. So I would say definitely Tim Curry. That would be the greatest honor ever.
I would say Stitches would be fun to go out with.
Yes!
A lot of people don't give Stitches love, and I think Stitches is hysterical. So
I haven't seen Stitches
Yeah.
since it came out.
Yeah.
I love that one though. I totally forgot about that. Who's seen Stitches? Anyone? Yeah?
Go see Stitches. It's they got some really funny kills in there.
I think it's actually streaming on Tubi too, so it's really easy to find.
So is Terrifier.
Yes, it is.
Back to back, double feature. There you go.
Absolutely. Some clown fun, y'all. Okay, so the character of Art started, of course, in All Hallows Eve and the Ninth Circle. That's the one. How did that evolve into Terrifier?
That's it's very confusing. So my first short film was The Ninth Circle, my first official short film. And it was gonna be my calling card as a filmmaker / special makeup effects artist. So I said, I have to pack this out with as much special effects, like crazy creatures, whatever I could do to grab the audience's attention in like 10 minutes. And one of the things that I always loved was killer clowns. So I was like, we have to throw a clown in there. And I had this idea of a clown terrorizing a woman on a city bus in the middle of the night. It's exactly how it plays out in the movie. That was the genesis, that was the idea. I don't know where it came from, but that was it. So I was like, I gotta start the movie with this. And then it was a matter of, well, what does he look like and how does he act? And like I said before, it was, if I'm gonna do a killer clown, it cannot be anything even remotely close to Tim Curry. Because then what's the point? There's no point, so I gotta be different. So, ripped it off? Yeah, exactly. And I knew there was just something more that I could do, something different, my own little twist on it. So, you know, that helped a lot. Like, Art the Clown doesn't have hair, he does. Art the Clown's black and white, he's very colorful. One speaks, one doesn't, one uses weapons, one doesn't. So I owe a lot to Pennywise for that. But that's how it started. And then when I showed that movie, everybody was like, it's very cool, like, you know, good stuff, good makeup effects, blah, 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 you know, the demons are cool, but my God, that clown is insane, like, you know what I mean? Like, you gotta do more with him, because he was only in the first 5 minutes. Like, he starts it off, he abducts the woman, then he hands her over to this cult, and he's gone. But everybody's like, that clown, you gotta do more, you know? And I'm a firm believer, and you just, you know, you get the same consensus, and you keep hearing the same thing, you should listen to that. So I said, all right, I'll keep exploring this character more. And then it was about making a short film that focused solely on Art the Clown, and that's where Terrifier came in.
Sure. Yeah. And then tell me, you know, how did you find David, and how did you two kind of connect, and how did you become Art?
Craigslist personal signals. No. Casual encounters now. Well, that would be weird.
Well, so, as you know, Dave's not the original Art the Clown. The original Art the Clown is my buddy, Mike Gianelli, my childhood friend. And when I grew up making short films and I was, you know, learning how to do special effects, I would just pull my friends aside and be like, I need to test this bullet hit on you on the side of my house and hope blood pumps up to them. And Mike was always like my guinea pig. And then I said, look, I had this clown character now. I said, I know you're not an actor. This clown doesn't have to do anything but sit there, smile, you know, and do things. I'm like, I think you can pull it off. And he said, sure, I'll do it. And before you know it, he's stuck playing Art the Clown. So long story short, he didn't want to keep doing it because he's not an actor, and he didn't want to spend all those hours in the makeup chair. So now we had to recast the most crucial element to everything that worked. I mean, if anything was working, it was Art the Clown. That was the only thing that had zero complaints. Everybody just thought he was like just a winner. So I'm like, now we gotta start from scratch. So we had this audition. I don't remember what I put in it. I know there wasn't many details.
It was, you were looking for a tall, skinny guy with clowning or physical comedy experience with a quote-unquote role of a lifetime.
See, I had an idea that something was there.
And he was right. And so I saw that, and I'm like, oh, because I had seen All Hallows Eve, so I knew the character. I'm like, oh, because when I saw it, I loved the character. I was like, oh my God, he's like the evil Mr. Bean, and I'd always wanted a chance to play a character, a silent character like that, because I think that's a great challenge for an actor, especially for comedy, and, you know, blending comedy and horror in that way. I'm like, oh my God, there's so much possibility with this character. I'd love to sink my teeth into it. So I'm like, in contact my agents, and I'm like, please send me in. I know I can knock this out of the park. Okay, cool. So I get the audition, and it was really one of my first auditions ever for a feature film. I only really done like voiceover work and Broadway type work and musical theater. This big musical theater geek.
Same, both of us, big time.
And so I go into the room, and I go up there, and like, do you have any signs for me to look over? I'm like, oh no, you should have gotten the script. I'm like, oh God. Because I look around, everybody else has got scripts in this room. I'm like, oh no, I'm going to kill my agent over this. And so they call me in, I'm like, oh no. And I'm like, I'm so sorry, I never got a script. And they're like, oh, it's fine. I'm like, okay. They're like, yeah, Art doesn't talk. I'm like, okay. What do I do? And they're like, oh, just, come up with a scene where you decapitate a guy and you're happy about doing it. And go. And I'm like, oh, yeah, a few minutes just think, like, no, we just want to see what you can come up with on the spot on your feet. I'm like, okay. And I don't know where this came from inside of me, but it's just one of these things where I think it's important for every actor to have some kind of experience with improv, because you never know when you're going to be thrown into one of these kind of situations. And that's what happened here, and I just had to go with, I just turned off the brain and let whatever happened, and I came up with this whole, I don't know why I thought of this, but I did come up sneaking up behind my victim very cartoonishly and like knock him out. Take out a hacksaw and sawed off his head, picked up the head, tasted it, didn't like the taste, so I took out a salt shaker and seasoned it. Not nice, kind of bathed in the blood, give it a thumbs up, and skipped out on my merry way. They're like, oh.
Yeah. So the they in the room was me and my producer Phil. I was the one who gave him that direction, and I was really just looking for mainly because again, like my friend Mike was not an actor, and I'm like, all right, he took to the role pretty easily, so I just need someone who has the physicality, and then I can pretty much talk them through it. And now, especially this time, starting from scratch, I said I wanted someone who's particularly taller and skinnier. So as soon as Dave walked in the room inside, I'm like, and he smiled. I'm like, this guy looks fantastic. I'm like, don't blow it, man.
Yes.
And then I said, what do I gotta do? I said, you're decapitating somebody gleefully. Just have a good time doing it. And he just like flipped the switch, and he just had such a, you could see the video, it's out there. And he's sawing the guy's head off, and he's like all hunched over and doing this like weird Grinch kind of look, and pouring the salt. And me and I'm like nudging my producer. I'm like, this is fun. We're having a good time watching him. I'm like, this is fantastic. And then he just stops, and then like this childlike persona just takes over, like right from Art the Clown to back to being Dave, just like goofy. He's like, hey, that's whatever, man. And I'm like, I like this guy, I like this guy. He's probably gonna be a lot of fun to work with, And then like 3 other people came in after that, and I was like, I don't even remember.
So it was always David all the time.
As soon as that, and then when the day was done, I looked at Phil and I said, what else are we looking for? I'm like, let's have this guy come in, let me put the mask on him, and let's have him do this again, and let's see how it works. And then he came in and he did it, and it was just like, this is the guy. Yeah, he's the one. Here he is.
I think the final test though is like they had ordered pizza when they were putting on the makeup, and the pizza guy comes like, Dave, go answer the door. So the guy's like, man.
Did Did you get a discount on the pizza then? Did they just give it to you? Say, we're good.
Yeah.
Okay, we're good.
The brown pan discount.
How long did it take the makeup process for you to get complete art?
It takes about 3 hours.
Okay.
Yeah, it used to take a little bit longer, but we've gotten down to a science.
How long does it take to take it all off?
About another 30 to an hour.
Okay.
Yeah, depends how much the person helping him cares. Like, we've gotten so tired that I just scrape it. Like when it's me taking it off, I just scrape it off. I'm like, here, here's the goddamn rip. It's like after an 18-hour day.
Yeah.
You get Jackie, one artist, and she just slowly meticulously just.
Yeah, not me.
You know what? I've been in makeup before and said, get it off.
Yeah, just get it off.
Just rip it off.
Yeah.
No, I did a movie where they spray painted me makeup, you know, like they gave me lines from head to toe, front, back, everything. And it wouldn't come off.
Oh no.
So what I did, two people behind me, like working, like scrubbing it off, and I'm like, I want to go home and not look green.
Might as well go to a car wash.
Yeah.
I just want to not be green anymore.
Not to jump ahead, I'm sure we're going to talk about the sequel, but there have been makeups in the sequel where at the end of the day we've had to have 4 people. We put the person in the middle of the room, and this is after like a 20-hour day of filming, and then like 4 of us surround this person, and we literally take the makeup off of them until we fall, like we pass out doing it. Like we all have stories of us passing out, like while we're scraping the glue and the prosthetics off of this person until the sun comes up. So it's brutal. There's no easy way to get these prosthetics off. Like there's no shortcut. It's actually pretty brutal.
And you know, where did you kind of come up with the design for art? I know you didn't want to be Pennywise, but like, where did you kind of get the idea for that look?
Actually, one of the big inspirations was because my favorite show of all time is The Twilight Zone.
Love
The original
Twilight Zone.
Yeah. So there's an episode called 5 Characters in Search of an Exit, if anybody's familiar with that episode. It's like the twist is that their toy is stuck in this drum. And yeah, they're trying to get out. Yeah, it's like the origin to Toy Story, actually. And one of them is a clown, and I just love the way the clown looked. He's not quite Art the Clown, but if you do see that episode, you can see where the similarities stem from. So that was it, and I just loving the black and white, and again, because Pennywise is so colorful. And a lot of the things with me is keep it very simple. Don't make it complicated. Like a clown can get very complicated, a lot of colors, a lot of patterns. So let's just keep it as simple as possible. So I like the black and white element.
I like the little hat.
The little, oh yeah, that's definitely from
Where's the little hat?
The Twilight
Where
Zone.
it from? This is beautiful.
Mm-hmm. The Twilight Zone character has like a little plant on his head. It's like a pot. Yeah. Yeah. So.
The happy candy.
Yeah.
It's like, don't touch the happy candy. You're gonna die.
So we know we have some Terrifier fans in the room right now. We want to make sure you guys have a chance to ask your questions. So does anybody have questions out there?
How old were you when you got into acting like hardcore?
I kind of started out doing like church theater like when I was like 2 or 3 years old, which is funny considering what I'm doing now.
Like about Jesus in Alabama.
Now look at me. But no, I really got more hardcore into it when I was in middle school because I was being bullied a lot. Because I was, at that time, I was a late bloomer. I didn't hit puberty until I was like 16 years old, between my 10th and 11th grade summer. And it was just like, I went, woo! And so I was like 5'2", 5'3" in middle school, skinny, braces, glasses, voice soprano, sucked at sports, in the Bible Belt where everybody loves football. So I was like, oh yeah, easy target. So I got made fun of all the time. But at home, I was always goofy. You know, I'd always do all my crazy voices and stuff like that. And my mom was just like, I don't understand why these kids are so mean to you. I'm like, do they not see this other side of you at school? I'm like, no, they never let me have that moment to actually show myself. And my mom was like, well, why don't you do some theater? Like, your choral program's doing Mickey's Christmas Carol this year, and you do a great Mickey Mouse impersonation. Why don't you audition for Mickey in that? Okay, cool, and I did. And we're doing the performance. and everything starts to go wrong on stage. Like one part, like the set fell down on top of Scrooge and I, that we're doing our, but thankfully it was a cardboard set. And I was like, oh, Mr. Scrooge, I think we're gonna have rats. I would just start improvising on the spot. We had our Cratchit family dinner and the table broke and slumped a little chicken over the whole entire audience. Like, oh, well, I guess we're having fast food tonight. It was just that, and I had the audience dying laughing. And that was the first time at that school that people were laughing with me instead of at me. And I loved that feeling. As like I was in control, I had the power that time. And I'm like, I love this, and I'm bringing joy and happiness to people. And I'm like, I want more of this. I like this feeling. And I'm like, I told my mom that, and she's like, oh, we need to get you more into theater. And so I started doing all the local community theater with Children's Day, and that's really where I cultivated my physical comedy skills. Because around the same time, my aunt gifted me a box set of Mr. Bean videos. And this is also the same time that Jim Carrey was big with Ace Ventura and Mask and all that. And I just absorbed all of that. I'm like, I want to do that. That looks like, I love that kind of comedy. And so I really focused on developing those skills. So I just developed those over my life. But I, oddly enough, didn't go to school for theater. I was trying to be practical, pragmatic with my life, and I was like, well, you know, I love kids. I come from 4 generations of teachers, so I got my degree in elementary education. But my mom passed away while I was in college, and that totally changed my whole perspective on life, because our last conversation together, she's like, you know, don't do what you think you have to do with your life. Do what you want to do with your life. You have a certain skill set that you're gifted with. Don't waste that. Don't live a life of regret. Go out and give life your all. And it sunk in. I'm like, you know what? I was doing my internship in the schools, and I was doing story time one day, and I was doing all the voices for all the characters in the story, and I discovered I was getting more fulfillment out of entertaining my students than teaching them. I'm like, this is what I need to do. And I talked to my dad, expected a huge speech from him. I was like, no, we spent all this time and money and all that onto this is a practical thing. He's like, no. Your mom and I always thought you should be an actor. We just don't want to tell you what to do with your life. We want you to figure it out for yourself. He's like, just finish up your degree, and then after you get that, so you have something to fall back on, go where you want to. And that's what I did. Like I moved up to New York, and the rest is history. So you just never know. I always say, you know, life is too short not to at least try.
Any other questions out there?
Was there any point, ever since you became Art the Clown, that the pressure was too much for you and you felt like it was just too much?
Maybe hour 19 in Fright Factory on one day where I was like, oh God, we got so much more to go through. Oh my God.
Yeah, there's an infamous moment where Dave cracked on the set of Terrifier 2 that you'll hear eventually.
I think that place cracked everybody, because it was cold and damp, and it was just like, oh gosh.
Yeah, we were filming the climax of the movie, and I wanted to make sure that one of my principles is, especially something I feel like we didn't necessarily do in the first one, but every great movie should do it, is just have this astonishing climax, right? We pretty much peak in Terrifier at the hacksaw scene, the first Terrifier. So this one, I wanted to make sure our finale was just overload, just you couldn't believe what the hell we were doing. So when it came time to actually start filming it, it's one thing to read it, but then when you actually have to start doing it, we broke every person, crew member, cast member in the movie. By day 6 of shooting it, it was just unbearable. So yeah, everybody broke, and you'll eventually hear about that story.
But the one that I was always amazed that didn't break with him is because he has the weight of the world on his shoulders during this. Because he's not just directing; he wrote it. He's doing everything for this thing, and he's the one probably getting less sleep out of anybody because even though I'm done and out of makeup and I'm going back, he's got to set everything up for the next day. And to start my makeup for the next day. I'm some days he was coming in going on no sleep. And I'm and he's totally just, okay, something might go wrong, and said he was it is what it is. He's like, 'cause I'm so used to, especially working in theater, having directors. He's just like, I mean, there were even some days on set where he's just so tired, he's over there in a chair. He's like, okay, one more time. He's got his eyes closed. That'll look great. Just one more time. So you gotta hand it to the guy. I mean, it's like, he's fully dedicated to this, and it's gonna show in the final product that's coming out to you guys. It's like every cast member, every crew member gave it their all for this film. It's like there's pure love with the second film, and I can't wait for you guys to see it.
We're so excited.
So is the second film completed? Is it ready to be released? What is our status?
So it's completed, it's edited, so I can literally watch it from start to finish. But right now it's being colored and the score is being done. And there's some slight visual effects, but nothing crazy whatsoever. It's like 99.9% practical, of course.
And that's why we love it,
right,
we love the practical effects.
I know everything that's working and a lot of things that aren't from the first one, so we try to
CGI
do
time
yeah.
is used for sprinkled in here and there a little bit, tiny bit. But
Well, yeah, that's one of the great things that I love about CGI is when you actually take different practical elements and you put them together. So there's really nothing artificial, you're just mixing two real things together, and you can come up with absolute magic doing that. And actually when we just wrapped, those were some of the things I was doing, was actually going out and filming those little elements that we needed. But yeah, I mean, it's very close to being done. So it's just a question of getting a distributor and when they're able to put it out. But personally, we want to have it out by Halloween. Even if it doesn't have distribution, I want to premiere it on the weekend of Halloween somewhere. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure wherever it's playing, I'm sure it'll be open for some people to come and see it, just fans. So.
is it going to be touring, like in theaters, or is it going to be open everywhere?
I don't know, but if we can't find a distribution deal, one of the things that I personally want to do, if it just falls into our lap and we have it, I want to do like a Kevin Smith style traveling roadshow where I just take it to like every state.
Yes, please.
Yeah, every state, and just make it like an event and show the movie and then do a Q&A and signing, whatever, and just make it totally interactive with fans. I think that would be so much fun.
Who would go to that? Yes, Chicago, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So we have a podcast called The Dolls of Horror, and we post any questions for you two lovely gentlemen. And Taylor Ball asked, what horrific ideas were scrapped from part one? For maybe being too graphic or too silly even.
Okay, I actually do have a kill. I can't say what it is because I probably want to, if we do make a part 3, I want to put it in part 3. But I can tell you that it happened to the Tara character, played by Jenna Cannell, who gets shot in the first one. So it was pretty much, it was a torture scene almost as crazy as the hacksaw scene. But I knew if we did that back to back, like it would just be overload and I would just totally lose the audience at that point. Or at least they'd be so numb by the time you got to her kill that it wouldn't be effective. Yeah, so I said we can't possibly do that, so we'll just shoot her in the face 100 times. But it's a really disturbing, brutal kill, so.
Oh, I want to see that.
Well, you'll definitely see at least one extremely disturbing, brutal kill in part 2.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's a weird thing that as bad as this whole pandemic has been, it actually gave us a little extra time. And we started filming this bit right before the whole pandemic. We started filming the first part of the kill, but then the pandemic happened, and he's like, well, we got time. We can actually build more stuff now. And so we went back and just redid the whole kill, and it took us 5 days to film this thing because there's so many elements to it. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, what happens to the victim, I mean, it's just progression after progression. So like, everything's practical, so they were just, a whole day would be dedicated to just one piece of makeup that I had to do in this one effect. You know, that was like an 18-hour day of just doing this one piece of the puzzle that lasts on film for, 3 seconds. And then you go into the next bit the next day, and then so on, until it's like a dummy you're messing with. You know? But,
Speaking on special effects, do each of you have like a special effects moment in Terrifier? That's your favorite?
for sure the hacksaw scene in the first one. Yeah.
So
yeah. That was the scene we knew. Even when I wrote the script and I would show it to people, everybody was like, "Whoa, you going there? Like really?" And then when it was time to make the movie, we all unanimously said, "Well, this is the showstopper. This is the scene. So let's take the most time working on this." And my buddy Phil Falcone, who's the producer of these movies, the one who gives us all the money, he's the only reason we're all in this room right now. Like he's the only one who believed in me to give me money to make this Terrifier. And he was with me. You know, this guy worked in commodities, you know, 60-year-old guy now. He's this Italian guy from the neighborhood in Brooklyn, you know. He's like, I want to get into movies. He's like, he doesn't know anything about makeup effects. He's like, this is so cool. I want to learn. I want to be there by your side doing all this. And I'm like, oh, that's great. And it just helped me the whole way on, you know. And now he actually got really good at a lot of things. I mean, the whole way through Terrifier 2, like literally mold making with me, sculpting with me, all these amazing things. And he was the one saying, and even him, I gotta give him credit for this, like, I imagined seeing the full shot of like Art sawing her in half being like, just like so quick and so fast. I was like, we could probably like buy a mannequin and maybe I could like, you know, just make the arms kind of movable or something like that. And he was like, no, he's like, you do all this stuff. He's like, let's really like cast her from head to toe and make this whole, and I'm like, you're right, let's do that, you know, make this whole silicone body, make it as real as possible. I mean, clearly, I mean, you see it jiggling and moving, it looks pretty freaking awesome, but I mean, he really, yeah. Beautifully gruesome, yeah.
Stunning. That's what we love to watch.
But yeah, no, it looked great. I mean, it left an impression.
Yeah, because, okay, I'm a little late to the Terrifier. It came out a year before I saw it. It was recommended to me by my friend Leanne. She goes, have you seen Terrifier? I said, no, but I've seen like the poster and the guide, you know. She goes, oh. That's all she could give me.
I have that effect.
We know what she was doing right now.
She's like, she loves horror, right? So she's like, oh, there's this one scene, and it's just, oh, you'll see. That's all she got. That's all she could give me.
Now you know how us guys feel every time we see a guy get hit in the nards. It's like,
I got to the scene, I'm like, oh, okay. That's different. That's good. That's different. We don't do that a lot. That's good.
That's the challenge for a filmmaker today when you're making a slasher movie. It's like, what the hell is left to do to something?
Yes.
You know, so I was doing all kinds of research and looking at torture methods and things like that. And don't get me wrong, I'm not like, you know, particularly into that, although I love horror movies, you know, but you know, you got to deliver on those things. And then I stumbled across this method that, whether it's real or not, I don't know, but it's like this mythic method of torture where, like, the Catholic Church, it was like their method of killing people, where they would hang you upside down and they would saw you with like this giant saw, one person on each side, just like how you saw logs in half. And they said, like, because you're upside down, all the blood would drain to your head, and you weren't hitting any major arteries necessarily that quickly, so you were alive for quite some time during that method. So I was like, that's horrifying.
That is actually terrifying.
Yeah, and I've never seen that in a movie before.
Right,
And
right.
Let's do that. Let's show that, and let's show it. Let's show every piece of that.
Yeah.
My favorite part of that is something where I feel like if somebody else did that, they wouldn't show the hacksaw
Yes.
going through the ass crack. Like, that's my favorite shot. I was like, that's us pushing the envelope. Like, that shot right there. I like that one.
I just love going to the up the crack of dawn scene.
So David, what was the most challenging scene to shoot?
I know that's that scene.
Probably
that scene.
But for you, what about
for you.
What about the?
Oh yeah,
Oh yes.
Yeah, the Buffalo Bill scene though for me was probably the most challenging. That was because I also had to get over a lot of my own insecurities for that scene because you know like I'm the scarecrow, and it actually wasn't written that way. I was actually just wearing the body parts on top of my clown costume. And he approached me like 2 or 3 days before we filmed. He's like, Dave, I've got a crazy idea. This comes a lot from him. I got a crazy, sick idea. I'm like, okay, what? He's like, you're probably not gonna like this. I'm like, okay, what? He's like, why don't you do that naked? And I'm like, Who wants to see my butt? I don't even want to see that. But I'm like, I really thought about it because I thought about what Catherine was doing for the her scene, and I'm like, you know what? If she's able to do what she's doing, and she's going to do this in these horrible conditions, and exposing herself in such a vulnerable manner, and she's okay with that, and because she understands this is for the integrity of the film. I could do the same thing, because yeah, this will be a lot freakier if, this guy has flayed someone's skin off of them, is wearing their skin on his own skin. That's messed up. And most people don't realize it's just not the wig and the boobs. It's also the down there.
So we just kept it in the shadows, but it's there.
And there's also another funny story that comes with this, is the day of the shoot. he calls me up. He's like, "Dave, bring a." Are there any kids in here? Okay. Bring. It rhymes with sock.
A rock sock?
A rock sock. bring a rock sock with you to set. I'm like, "What's a rock sock?" He's like, something to cover up your rocks with. I'm like, "Oh, just bring a tube sock with you." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." I didn't think about it. So I show up, and I come out, and I'm wearing because I had to glue the piece to me, because that's just weird for other people to come in and glue the piece to you, and I add it on, and I come out, and you just see this glaring white tube sock underneath all this. And he's like, "Oh no!"
It's literally the sock. He's like, he comes into and it's like this. I'm like, dude. I'm like, we can't.
Ladies.
That's not gonna work.
Like
I'm like, I needed like a black sock that kind of keep everything up there, and out of sight. I'm like, what are we gonna do here?
Like, I don't know. So that's actually one of the very few places in Terrifier where there's some CG to edit stuff out. Ladies.
No, but seriously, when I asked him about it, I told him, I was like, I think it'll be a lot cooler if you're naked, because then your whole body is just gonna transform, and you're gonna look like a woman who's just like bloody, and everyone's just gonna be like, whoa, what is happening? But he really just like instantly, there was no hesitation really on his, maybe like a moment of silence to take it in, but he was like, yeah. He was like, oh, I'll do it. I mean, that's a huge deal. It's a huge deal for an actor to just get naked, and it's his first movie. So
Poor
like,
crew.
yeah.
Oh,
That was definitely the most uncomfortable thing.
They didn't want it to be, because they hadn't seen my butt all that. I'm sorry, guys. So I would try to keep things light and fun. So
There's a lot of funny footage of me,
my
like, him coming up like dancing, and then I yell cut, and then he turns away, and you see this like walk out of the scene.
I always start singing Moon Over Parma or Blue Moon or Baby Got Back. It's like, just trying to get. It was also Samantha Scaffidi's first night really working with me on set. That was her real introduction to me. So I just come out like, "Hi, I'm David, and these are my boobs."
One of the cool things that happens is because he's the first person on set, because he has to get 3 hours worth of makeup, and he's the last person to leave because I got to take it off. He's got to take it. Everybody goes home. So people film with him only as Art the Clown for months. So then when they see him like at the premiere or something, like a year, you know what I mean? They're like, "Who's this?" It's like, "That's Dave," and they freak out. Like, it's such a cool moment.
You look so much better with the makeup on.
So David, that was the most difficult scene to shoot. Was there a most fun scene to shoot?
Oh, definitely the pizzeria scene.
That's my favorite.
That's my favorite.
Way.
It's one of those scenes where, first of all, you don't have to have exposition for the character. You see everything you need to know about that character in that scene. You see all of these different facets in that one few minutes right there, and you're like, "Oh, I know what this guy's about now." But it's also where, because when Damien wrote part one, he didn't know how I am as an actor, and I like to play. I like to just experiment, see what we come up with, and that was one of those things where he was like, let's just play around with stuff, especially with all the faces I was making. We just let the camera roll, I just make faces. And that's what was so much fun about it. So there's a lot of just creative play going on in that scene. And this is something that's carried on into part 2, where he wrote some specific scenes where it's just like, he gives his basic premise, where he's like, and art plays. And we're just like, we'll just figure that out when we get on set and see what I have to work with. And there are a few scenes in part 2 where I was like, yes! I couldn't wait to get those scenes, because it's like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but it's gonna be magical.
It sucks too because you can't use them all, and there's so many good options, and you're wondering, did I choose the right one? Like, which is the, but yeah, that was fun.
Extras on DVDs.
Yeah.
Well, Terrifier is so awesome because it gave us a wonderful, modern, new horror character, you know, to fall in love with. So what do you guys think kind of sets Terrifier apart from other modern horror movies?
Wow.
I think, first of all, we're not afraid to actually push the envelope. I think Hollywood right now is playing it way too safe. They're too afraid of offending people. They like to stay with what they think works, and they don't want to take those risks anymore. And with horror especially, you have to take risks. And that's what we do with this. We're just like, let's see if this works. And we're like, yeah, cool, this is a cool idea. Let's go with it. And so I think that's part of it, but I also think it's just like, you haven't had any really good horror villains that often anymore. It's just like, they're all just trying to be cookie cutters of what has come before, especially with Jason and Mike Myers. It's just another guy wearing a mask, but there's no personality behind him. And that's what I love about Art, is he's like an amalgamation of all the horror villains that have come before him. He's like a love letter to them, and there's little bits and pieces of everybody in him. And I think that's what actually, he's that silent killer, but he's also very mischievous.
I think he's very genuine. I think that's the secret to his success, because I'm literally just like every person in this room. Like, since I'm 3 years old, my mother named me after The Omen. I was just born into horror movies. I've been idolizing slashers since I'm 5 years old. Like, those were my Superman, my Batman. It was Jason, Freddy, and Michael Myers. I would like sleep with the Jason model, screaming model kid, like when I was like a kid. You know, I mean, and you consume that much material for that long, you start to see like what's working, what might not necessarily work, like what's missing. Is there something different that I can do? And like he said, he's like this combination of all these. It really is. It's everything that I love from all those characters. And it's like, what little pieces could I take and mold into this something fresh and something new? And he really is. If you look at him, I mean, he's like the silent killer like Jason and Freddy, but he has the personality of Freddy, you know, and he's a clown, and it's like all these elements. He's like more gritty, like Leatherface. So you take all these elements, and then there's still something new that comes out on the other end. And yeah, I agree. I mean, we're not afraid to take risks. We don't care what anybody's saying out there. There's no restrictions for us whatsoever. Like, well, whatever idea comes to my mind, like, I will do it. I'm not afraid to, because I'm not setting out to offend anybody. I don't. That's not what I think about when I go to
like it,
movie.
don't watch
Yeah,
it.
exactly. I cannot be bothered with that mindset. I'm making a movie that my little 8-year-old self would have loved to rent. So
You're making a movie my girl self would have loved.
Friends in this
yeah, of
room.
course.
In the same place.
So, it's very genuine. I think that, I really do think that's the secret. It's something I would genuinely just want to see. Yeah.
All right, any more audience questions? Sir.
Hey, you said you grew up watching horror. Who are some of your favorite directors?
Oh, the usual suspects, honestly. I mean, George Romero might be my favorite. He might be my ultimate hero. But you know, I love John Carpenter, Wes Craven, Tobe Hooper, Dario Argento, everyone.
Suspiria was my first horror movie ever.
Okay.
I'm 8 years old, and it was all horror all the time after that. It's been 30 years.
There you go. I will say this too. One of the big kills in Terrifier 2 was sort of inspired by the opening kill of Suspiria. Like, so it's like that we tried to times by like 10.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm like sandwiches? What? Because I'm Ballerina too. I'm like,
That's a very cutthroat business.
yeah.
I
I was
go around
like,
ballerinas and I'm like,
whoa, this is the best thing I've ever seen in my entire 8-year-old life.
And I gotta say though, Tom Savini is really like the ultimate. He's my ultimate hero. And when Because I didn't, when I was a kid, I was always artistic, but I would, I always thought I wanted to grow up to be like a cartoonist or a comic book illustrator because I would draw a lot. But then when I discovered his VHS tape called Screen Greats, which was the first time I ever saw what a makeup effects artist does, and I was like, oh my God, because I saw him with like the Jason puppet from Friday the 13th Part 4 and like Fluffy, and I was like, oh my God, like this is the guy making those monsters. And I said, this is insane, this is so cool. And sure enough, the mom and pop video store that I would frequent had it to rent. And I rented it, and as soon as I saw that, it was just like a light bulb went off. And then I really became infatuated with just like the movie magic and illusions and everything. So yeah, I got into special effects first, and then that led into filmmaking, because you had to figure out the camera trickery to make those special effects come to life. And then I just fell in love with filmmaking as a whole. So I gotta give credit to Tom Savini, that's my guy.
So amazing.
Anybody else?
Can we ever expect an origin story for art?
Yes, I like to. I love the mystique of Art the Clown. I think that's probably one of the greatest like assets to the character. I think if you pull the curtain back too far and you show the wizard, like it's over, the illusion's gone. And I don't think everybody probably has some sort of idea of what they hope or they wish Art the Clown was. And if I tell you what he is and it doesn't match up to what you had in mind, it's over. Like I'm gonna lose half of you. So I think there's a way, my goal is to like walk a fine line where I can give you enough puzzle pieces but not give you too much. So right now I know what he is or who he is, but again, I always say this as well, until it is written and it is shot, every day I'm constantly daydreaming and thinking, could I make this cooler, could I make this better? So tomorrow it might change, it might turn into something else, so yeah.
I always like to think of it as kind of like how Joker is, like who he was before he was, he was the Red Hood film with that. But you don't know who he was before he was Red Hood, and I love that kind of like because that little bit of mystique is always kind of fun. It makes that character more intriguing in a lot of ways. It's like you don't want to always explain the joke, because if you explain the joke, there is no joke.
Then the other thing is, I've said this multiple times, so I'll say it, but the one thing that I never want to do is turn Art the Clown into a victim, where you find out he has some sort of traumatic past or something like that made him a monster. To me, he's just the devil on two legs, you know what I mean? He's the embodiment of evil. There's no reason to ever feel sorry or bad about him whatsoever. So that's another thing that I have to make sure that I stick to.
Any other audience questions?
You guys remember to use refrigerated meat for Terrifier 2, right?
Wait, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Refrigerated meat? Did you use refrigerated meat?
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that name is interesting.
Yeah.
Adjustments.
We use real stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Even if you're refrigerated, it still smells horrible.
Oh, yeah. We just did some stuff recently with the like the sausage casings and fat and stuff like that. It's like,
Is when you use like real meat and real fat, it's like you can get it like into the blood pumps, and it doesn't clog it up, and it comes out and it spews out like slime. It's the only way you can get it is if you use real stuff. It's actually very interesting. Yeah.
There was definitely one night in part 2 where I was just sticking my hands and stuff. I'm like, oh God! It's a good thing we were using sound at the time, because it's also freezing cold, and I'm sitting there going, oh gross! So many textures. Oh. It looks so cool.
Any other audience questions out there? No. Okay. I also wanted, we talked about kind of your love of horror. How about you, David? Are you a fan?
I was a little bit late to the game though, because my mom was a chicken. She thought The Fall of the House of Usher was the scariest movie she had ever seen in her life. And if you ever seen that movie, you're little. So we
And none of its reincarnations either.
Yeah, no. And so we didn't really watch horror in my family, except my dad would watch it late at night on Sci-Fi or something like that. So I didn't see horror films until I was in my senior year of high school, and that's right when Scream 2 came out, so that dates me. But and I was doing a show, and there was a girl in the cast I had a crush on, and they're like, "Hey, you want to come out and see Scream 2?" I'm like, "Oh God." I was like, "Well, so-and-so's going." I'm like, "Okay, I can't be a chicken in front of her, so I'm going." And I was so expectant, like, "Oh God, oh God, oh God." And I'm watching it, and I'm just dying laughing and just having some. I'm like, what's wrong with my mom? These are great. And so I did a lot of catch up when I went to college the next year, because my roommate also came from a very strict Southern Baptist family, so he had never seen this. And so we just would go on the weekend and go to the local movie gallery and just rent a stack of horror tapes from all the great movies. And that's what we would just all weekend just sit there watching horror movies and catching up. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so much. So that's where my love is, the 70s and 80s horror. I just love those movies. And some of the 90s too. I mean, I love the Scream movies. I think
Did you see Scream 1 before you saw Scream 2?
No, I saw Scream 2 first. I saw Scream 2 first, and I saw Scream 1. Immediately after, I'm like, I have to see Scream 1 now, oh my God. But I think, especially, I'm thinking like Scream was a great way to be introduced to horror.
The first Scream is a fucking masterpiece.
Oh,
I still love it.
Fantastic.
I think Kevin Williamson is a storytelling master, first of all. I mean, has anyone ever seen The Following?
I haven't.
Dude, guys. Twisty, it's so twisty. It's crazy. Just when you think you know what's going
Wait,
on.
you're talking about the Kevin Bacon show?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I haven't. I know of it.
There's 3 twists per episode. You're like, no.
Wow.
Kevin Williamson wrote that, and I think Scream, but
Well, he had great twists. I mean, yeah, he changed the game. He changed Hollywood at that time, the horror genre. So you gotta give it to him.
And any other audience questions out there? So I would love to know, is there any place that either of you would really like to take art? Whether that's somewhere internal, space.
that's where you go when you run out of realms. Space. Really, dude?
I think art, but everybody's like, nope.
Wait a minute. Yes. There is a place that if I make a part 3 that I want to take and that I cannot say where it is. But it's like a wow. Okay, that's cool. That's interesting.
Well, I genuinely hope there is one.
Oh yeah.
Who knows? We might be so delusional and biased at this point with part 2 that we're not. It's gonna be fantastic. But if part 2 proves to, you guys still want to see more, we'll definitely deliver a part 3.
I'd also love to hear a little bit about, what the fans are kind of like, because I know that Terrifier has so many fans. What was it kind of like when it came out? What was the reaction like? And, just how do the fans kind of treat you guys? How's that feel?
I mean, first of all, right here, this is such a creative, like what he's done with his cosplay. I really love.
Look at the smile. He has the smile.
It's not done either.
I'm a huge cosplay fan. I used to cosplay as Joker a lot, so I'm like, I just love cosplay. And it's just like, this just makes my heart happy. It's just like, it's not just art, but it's their own interpretation and his story of why he came up with this version of it is even fantastic. I'm like, this is great. I love it. And that's what's been mind-blowing about this, is just how the fans have attached themselves so readily to it and have just gone crazy with this. There's so much artwork out there, no pun intended. Tattoos, just all the time tattoos now. It's insane.
People have gotten tattoos of Lauren Rivera, who plays Sienna, who's the final girl in the second one, without even seeing the movie. I could kill her off in the first 5 minutes. They have no idea. I don't, but
She got killed off in the first 5 minutes. And did you see that kill? Because it's going to be great.
That's true. We wouldn't let you down. But yeah, seriously, I mean, and we're just so grateful. We don't take any of that for granted, and we're just constantly on social media. We are just constantly, any fan who reaches out to us, we're constantly talking to. There's just conversations.
I try my best.
Yeah, we try our best.
Everybody, because I've been a fanboy for a long time myself. So I'm like, I I used to sit right where you all are sitting, and this was actually one of my dreams, was to be able to do conventions like this one day. So I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe this is still like surreal. So, but it's because of you guys that we're able to do this kind of stuff. So it's like, we freaking love you guys.
Love it. Yeah, I mean, like I said, like I was obsessed with Tom Savini, and then when, because I'm on the East Coast in New York, and you know, we found out that there's these things called horror conventions, you know, in the early 90s, and my mother's like, I'll take you, you know, Tom Savini's gonna be in this one in Jersey.
Best mom ever!
Wait, best mother ever, and I can't tell you how nervous I was to meet him.
I'm sure we've all felt that, right?
I'm still not good at that at all. I'm obsessed that I can't even fathom that Richard Dreyfuss, because Jaws is my favorite movie of all time. He's directly in front of me, like so starstruck. It's insane. And then sure enough, we get into the lobby and Tom Savini's just walking by, and my mother runs over to him. I'm like, no, and she grabs him. My mother doesn't give a shit. She just grabs him. She's like, this is your biggest fan ever, and she just does all the talking. And I'm like, yeah. You know, and it was so surreal. But my point is, you know, I grew up at the conventions as a kid. And that's who I am to this day. Like, it hasn't changed. So when I see little kids or any fan come up to the table, I'm just like, oh my God, this is me. This is little me. This is amazing. And it's just the most beautiful thing. I love it so much. So I desperately do not want to disappoint them. So that's one of the reasons why it's taken so long for part 2 to come out. Like, we're not messing around.
You're not trying to put a new one out every year. It's got to be right.
You're gonna see it, and you're gonna be like, wow. Like, you're gonna say whether you like it or not, you're not gonna deny. You're gonna be like, they swung for the fences with this movie. Like, you're gonna say that. So that's all I
We didn't want to pull a Cyberpunk 2077, so just thank you for your patience. And it's also the fans really are a big part of, you know, why part 2 happened too. It's just the funding. It's like primarily funded by the fans. We have fans in the movie that help fund it. There's a great scene that they're in. I can't wait for season 2. Oh, it's just like, this is a fan film in every sense of the word. It's like we're all fanboys that have made a horror film that we've always wanted to make, and it's funded by fans.
And part 1 felt like a fan film too.
Yeah.
Because it felt like it was made for us, by us.
Yeah, exactly. We also feel like, because everything's changing now, and like, you know, I couldn't be any further away from Hollywood. So like, what we do is also like so interactive and inclusive now with the fans. Like you were just saying, like how they funded like 75% of the second one. And so many people are in it, and so many people from just like that we met at conventions. One of my main right-hand people right now is was just helping us at the con. Well, like 3 years ago, and he just kept hounding me. You know, I really want to work on your movie. I really want to work on it. I'll do anything. I just want to be a gopher. And this and that. I'm like, all right, man, just like stop calling me. I'm like, come over, we're gonna do it again. And now he like runs my the business that will end up the thing that we're trying to do. So you never know. You never know what's gonna happen. It's amazing. It's such an amazing world. Yeah.
We have time for one more audience question. Does anyone have one? Last one. Yes.
Would you find that the distribution would be a lot easier on a platform like Shudder?
Would it be easier? I mean, if they just wanted it and just gave us a nice amount of money that we wanted, I mean, there you go. I mean, I would do it. It really just comes down to are they willing to give us the money that makes sense and like what the deal is, really. I mean, it's not necessarily a question of like if we're going to get distribution or how. It's like there's so many people who want to do it. It just has to make sense for us. I mean, distribution is a very tricky thing. It's a very shady business. Especially, I've been in it for so long now, and I've seen it. You know, that's like another aspect of the game that completely has to change. It has to change. So yeah, we'll see. We just like best case scenario. I would love for Netflix to come in and just give us what we want and just put it on Netflix and here you go, world, there it is, have fun, and just, walk away, but we'll see.
One final question. I love asking this because I get so many amazing answers. I have to think sometimes. For both of you, what is your philosophy?
My philosophy? That's a big, deep question. It's like Conan prom kind of stuff.
Take a moment.
Dave, you want to start?
I would say it goes back to like my mom's last conversation with me, is just live the life you want to live. Live without regrets. Go, shoot for the stars. And this, because you just never know what's going to happen. I never imagined I'd be doing what I'm doing now. I mean, I was a kid that was pushed into lockers and told I would be nothing. And this was like, now I'm doing this kind of stuff. So it's just like, but it comes down to also perseverance. So it's like, if you want something badly, keep at it. Keep at it. I mean, it took me 13 years just pounding the pavement and waiting tables to get to where I am. But it's just like, if you really want something, just go for it. Live that life. Grab life by the balls and cut them off like art.
I agree, I really do, and that really is mine. I believe that, we're really here once. This is a gift, this is an opportunity. And I mean, I knew it since I was a kid, like this is all I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to just create. And there was just like a piece of my imagination that I could just leave with people that I felt like they would appreciate, that I had something different going on up there. And no matter what, like when people ask me, should I make a movie, should I do this? I was like, you shouldn't even be asking me that question.
If you're asking them, it's no.
Right. I say it all the time, and the craziest thing is that I've heard like Arnold Schwarzenegger say this and hits like that. There's like this great motivational speech that he has online. It's incredible. It'll just get you fired up to do anything. But he says, never have a plan B. He's like, the minute you have a plan B, your plan A is going to fall apart. Like, you have to be stricken with fear that all you want to do is focus on that one singular goal. And if that's all you think about, you will absolutely make it happen. And I really believe that. It's the only thing I ever wanted to do. Whether or not I'm going to be successful or not, it had nothing to do with success. It's just like, I have to do this. Even if I made a Terrifier movie that cost $300 and nobody saw it, it's something I have to make, and I have to just get it out of me. So
and that was your short film, that was the beginning.
Right, and I actually take back off of that, because that's why I am Terrifier, because I had to do that very thing. Because I had come back from my last tour with How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and I would usually just go back to waiting tables. And I was getting stuck in that rut of just, because when you're waiting tables, you're just doing that day in, day out, and you're not doing audition, all this. And I'm like, I'm going to just take I have money saved up. I'm going to take just a few months off of my life and just focus on auditioning. I moved up here to be an actor. That's what I'm going to focus on, and that's what I did. And it took a few months. I had been up for different Broadway tours, and they all fell apart for one reason or another. One literally came down to a flip of a coin that I lost. And
isn't it if you won that, you wouldn't have been on?
Yeah, I wouldn't have been able to, because if I had gotten,
you won that coin to us.
I won that contest. That's exactly right. But at that time, I thought I lost it, and I was down and out. I was like, no, I was like, I'm so close. I just feel something is coming. I just need to keep on. I just need to keep on and keep on. And Terrifier audition came up, and boom, changed everything. So you just never know. But you got to. Those are the things you just got to focus on what you want to do. Just keep at it.
I completely agree with your story, especially David, because my friend just had an acting project fall through on her. She couldn't get to the country because she's from Ireland and there's a ban right now. And she's so upset. And I'm like, you know what? It's not meant to be right now. Something better was probably going to happen. Maybe something awful would have happened if you had known. You don't even know. It's just not right now, or it would happen. Something better is out there. So when anyone has a disappointment like that, just remember, there's got to be a reason. Somehow, and something better is about to happen. Trust me. Okay?
I look at it as, you never know what's going to happen when you try something. It might go great, it might go horrible, but you know how it's going to go if you don't try. It's not going to happen.
100%.
So give yourself that chance.
Yeah, and also life is mostly failures. It really is. And I've learned to completely embrace failures. Like when I fail at something, I don't just like crawl into a ball. Like I'm like, all right, well, what went wrong? And let's study that. Yeah, and let's study that, and let's not make that mistake again, and let's see how we can improve upon that. There's so many, I failed on so many projects before a Terrifier. I mean, there's even so many things on Terrifier that I failed at that could be so much better. And I listen to everything, every critic, every person who writes a review. I read it and I see it. What's the consensus? And like, if you hear something enough, like it's no longer people trolling or anything like that. It's like, all right, this is a genuine critique that I could be better in this area of the filmmaking. Mm-hmm. So then you should try and be better.
They're not doing it to hurt your feelings necessarily. It's just an opinion. Noted.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much. This is one of the best panels I've ever hosted.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
And it's an honor and a privilege to be able to do it.
Thank you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.